Derek, give me some good advice on how you go about tracking a cybercrook.
Tracking a cybercrook, my advice would be you have to send as much information into the SOC as possible and correlate it together, because you have to be able to track at every single point, the entry point all the way through your environment.
Good answer. All right, Sasha, complete opposite question. Give me some bad advice on tracking a cybercrook.
Okay. How about when you know about something, you have to act. So I think it's better to ignore visibility and insights, and don't have the information if you're not going to act on it, and you won't. So let's just not collect any logs or have any visibility.
Kind of the opposite of what Derek just advised. Derek, now you have to one up that. What's worse advice?
I say you just post all your data online and let people connect. I mean, give them privileged credentials right there on your website.
I think that's a great idea. Awesome. Let's begin.
Get ready. It's Super Cyber Friday.
Welcome, everybody. It's Super Cyber Friday. It's a Friday, and it's super, and we're talking about cyber. That's what it is. Today's topic is hacking like a cybercrook, an hour of critical thinking about attack paths. My guest, who you just met just moments ago, Sasha Jeller, who is the SVP Security Assurance over at Salesforce, and also Derek Melber, who's the Chief Technology and Security Strategist over at Tenable. Our sponsor for today's very episode is Tenable. They've been a phenomenal sponsor of the CISO series. Thank you very much again, Tenable, for coming on board. Hey, 7 different ways to participate in today's chat. We have the chat room. Here's the bad idea I want. What not to say to a cybercrook, which you should never actually say to a cybercrook. 3, submit tips to managing cybercrooks. 4th, vote in our polls. Join us on video at any time by just typing "Bring Me On" if you got a question or a comment. Ask a question. You'll see there's that button at the bottom of the screen to do just that. And you can also vote for our favorite question. All right. Our schedule today. You saw good advice, bad advice, worse advice. We'll get your bad ideas. We'll get your good ideas. We'll play the public interest. We'll put the poll live on what not to say to a cybercrook. Then we'll play That Totally Socks. And then we'll put our poll live on your tips as well. We'll play the Department of Yes, last questions and final advice. Then we will have our meetup. And if you've never come to our meetup before, please stick around and come to that, because it is a lot of fun. Last week, we got to meet the co-founder of the meetup platform we use, which is called Toucan. Hey, our next show next week is going to be Hacking Phishing. That's on September 23rd, an hour of critical thinking about how malicious attackers weaken trusted forms of communications. And guess what? There's a link at the bottom of the screen where you can register for next week's chat while you're in this chat. And guess what? It will not take you out of this chat. So do us all a favor and register, because if you register early, you're automatically entered in a raffle to win a CISO Series jacket. And by the way, we're working on other cool CISO Series swag. In fact, I was just talking to the distributor about that just before this show. And congrats to this week's winner, Bradley Allstat of Splunk. Speaking of Sims. All right. Oh, that's it. That's for later. Okay, so that's all I needed to say now. Let's jump into our conversation. Thank you, everybody. Tons of people joining on. We love to see that. All right. I'll start with you, Derek. I think you kind of mentioned it at the very beginning of the show. How do we get insights onto what the heck attackers are doing? Is it really just the SIM? What is it? What is it we're looking when we're trying to track our the attackers?
So I spend a lot of time with research, right? Every morning I get up. Every second I have, I'm unfortunately scouring through, LinkedIn or whatever, and I'm just trying to gather information, and then I transport that over into reality, right? Because if we know what the attacker is doing, we can then look for that information. And hopefully, if we actually get details, we can secure it before they get to our information. So I use a lot of research, honestly. And let's be really honest. Attackers do the same thing, right? They're not going to all of a sudden come up with some new whiz bang way when what they're doing works well. Now, of course, that fits into the SOC, right? It fits into the overall picture, for preventative and detection and everything across the way. But I really feel that research, knowing what they're doing as trends, can go a long way.
All right. So basic research, Sasha, what's your basic advice on where are you and how are you tracking cybercrooks?
Yeah, I certainly agree with what Derek said. I would the only thing I would add to it, and I think he alluded to it as well, is turning that into action and then having all the visibility you can and actionable insights from that visibility. So it kind of does come back to SIM and SOC at a super basic sense, but I think that the key is knowing signal from noise and knowing what to do with that signal. And I think a lot of that signal comes, or the refinement from noise into signal comes from the research that Derek alluded to.
Let's dig into that a little bit right there, because I would like to know how you do refine your listening platform to hear better. Give me an example, Derek, of tuning noise out.
Tuning noise out. I joke in almost every presentation. I'm like, as humans, we have a threshold, right, of false positives. Mine's 3. I know that's a really low number, but what we need to do is tune out what is causing these false positives. We have to do that. The SOC is so overwhelmed with information. So one of the things that I also promote, obviously I talk about AD a lot, is let's get contextual information into the SOC, not just logs. Let's get context into the SOC. So now when information comes in about endpoints or servers or domain controllers or OT or whatever it is, it makes sense. And now we don't have to analyze it incomplete. We're actually getting it more refined with the information we're sending in. So get rid of false positives as much as possible and get context into the SOC, and that's going to go a long way.
So does that mean when you say get context, that means every signal point has to coordinate with another signal point in some way? And I'm being super vague with this to see how you would answer that.
No, let me give you the easiest example possible, right? If I send information into the SOC that someone was added to a privileged group that has zero context, it may have been needed. I don't know. Why am I going to put that on the SOC analyst to say, was this good or bad, right? Mm-hmm. What I need something to say, we have a threshold on domain admins and another one was just added. Warning, warning, warning. Contextually, we hit something that's bad. Now they can take action on that. And that's just a simple example.
That's a good example. Sasha, do you have other examples of just sort of essentially taking the noise out?
Yeah, I mean, I think another good one is, PowerShell. Not every use of PowerShell is evil. And in fact, there are many great uses of PowerShell. So, I've seen SOCs drown in PowerShell alerts because, PowerShell was used to invoke something. That's not necessarily bad. In fact, it's usually very necessary and quite a big tool in the hands of network and system admins. But something like should you be using PowerShell to launch calc? I don't know. I would say probably not. Not to say it's evil every time, but PowerShell is used for some things in the right context, and it's usually unnecessary. And even if it's not malicious, it's just bad and stupid in other contexts. So yeah, I'm with Derek again. Being able to add more signal and context to what you're seeing is critical. Otherwise, you're either chasing the numerator or denominator. The other thing I would offer is maybe you can just take entire categories of risk off the table and not have to worry about them, therefore shrinking the denominator. Like, for example, get very good at privilege management. So just don't have local admin, and you will not be as concerned about entire categories of problems.
That's interesting. Derek, your eyes lit up, and actually, I was just looking at a Reddit thread that said, "What's the best advice you can give to your average person?" They said, "Don't ever use an admin account ever. Always just use a personal account." Thing. Your eyes lit up of, is that possible to? I don't know. Was your eyes lighting up because is it possible to not even have admin accounts? What was your reaction there?
I used to live in that space. I used to talk about that space a lot, right? Endpoint administrators. And there's been technology out there for 20 years to solve this problem. I was at an event yesterday, and when I said, don't give your users local admin, people wrote that down. I'm like, what? It's been 20 years. What do you mean? Why are you writing this down? It's like saying, make sure you breathe. Oh, I got to breathe. Okay. And so, getting rid of your users to be a local admin, even developers, right? And which is more difficult, but it's possible, can go so far. And I love that, Sasha, of taking that off your plate, right? Hey, get a PAM and now take all of those concepts off the plate, and you don't even have to worry about them because they're fixed. It's pretty genius. I like it.
Yeah, I mean, that was my point behind lower the denominator. It's like you can worry about that category of risks and how you're going to detect it and whatever, or you can just take it off the table entirely. And I've worked in an environment for almost 20 years where that was possible, and it was less than 0.5% of the environment had local admin. And those that did hated life every day because it was painful, because all the other extra tools and nags that were added if you had that, high risk exception. So it is possible. It requires a lot of rigor and a lot of, really mature processes, but it is possible to do. I will say it's possible to do in a Windows environment, right? Mac environment, I've still not met anyone, nor is it Apple's recommendation to run Macs in an enterprise environment in anything but with local admin context. So that's a whole other, set of concerns.
All right. I just, gentlemen, I'm just letting you know, our back channel seems to have crashed of some sort because I just typed something and nothing's coming in. So just to let you know, our back channel, I don't think is working right now. Let me just remind everybody, please register for the next week's Super Cyber Friday. We're just a few minutes from our first game. And also, I am saying right now, these bad ideas are so damn good that are coming in. Okay, so it is still working, by the way, our back channel. It's just the delay is like 30 seconds, it seems like. These are really good bad ideas, and I'm just saying you have to play the Department of Yes later. This is going to be a tough one for both of you. I'm just going to say these are going to be really, really tough ones. I'm going to be impressed, and the audience can be impressed if you can take the challenge to these answers. All right, I want to go to one of these questions here that just came in from Harshiel. He's got a good one here, and I'm interested to know if there is a universal answer to this question, because I know a lot of it is, it depends, your environment, let it. But Harshiel asks, what kind of alerts are must for daily for the SOC? Are there any that are universal, Derek?
I think privileged accounts, right? So Sasha and I are now, I think we're beating the drum around don't use privileged accounts, right? Don't use these accounts. And if you have that, well, now you're checking for these privileged accounts. I think another thing you can do is honeypots are awesome. I love the idea of honeypots, and you can monitor those every second of every day. And the perfect example is, right, I'm going to go into Active Directory and I'm going to rename administrator to some other name. And if someone logs on as domain administrator, you're under attack, right? Yeah. No one can say I accidentally typed the name administrator. No, you're no way. So there are some things you can absolutely do. And I'm sure that list can grow, but I mean, these are some just real basic things that are easy to set up and easy to monitor and will light up huge in the SOC.
All right. I want your answer to this too also, Sasha, and then we're going to go to our first game. What say you on this?
Yeah, I think it's actually a little bit of just a build on what Derek said, which is, domain admin or enterprise admin. But let's stick to domain admin. If you've architected your environment properly, domain admin hash or account should never be slung around the environment, right? You can build it in a way where you have server admin or server administrator roles, not domain admin roles that are being used from, endpoint to endpoint or server to server. And you should never have your domain admin hash being slung around your environment. You can architect it in a way through, Red Forest and enhanced security administration domain, so that if you do ever see it, that's a big problem. And I think that's a universal alert.
All right. Very, very good. All right. Let's jump into our first game. Here we go.
Do you know what others are thinking? On the public interest.
All right. This is a fun game, and our audience loves to play along as well, of which we encourage that as well. By the way, Sasha and Derek, if you want to improve the response time on our back channel, if you just refresh and enter again, you'll be able to do that. I just did that, and that fixed that problem. All right. Simple game. I think we all know how it's played. You'll know. If you don't, you're going to figure it out pretty darn quickly. Here we go. Most average monthly search query, cyber attack or cyber threat. What do you think it is, Sasha and Derek?
A, attack.
A, cyber. You're both saying A, cyber attack? Let's see. I'm sorry, who said B?
Nobody.
Nobody said B. Okay. Both saying cyber attack. And the correct answer is you are both correct. Cyber attack, 1-1 for both of you. Excellent. Good answer. All right. Okay. Attacker or criminal? Which one?
Attacker.
What do you think?
Yeah, I'm going to go with attacker as well.
Attacker, and you are both correct. Look at that. That shocked me, the sheer disparity between the two of them. That's huge right there. And by the way, if you notice, we have different letters because our audience is just a hair behind us here. And if it said AB constantly, who knows? All right, threat versus danger. What do you think, Sasha and Derek? So 2 for 2, 2 and 2 right now. Both
Threat.
Threat for sure. Threat for sure.
Threat for sure, and you're correct. Yes.
It wasn't as overwhelming as I thought.
Yeah, I know. I agree, Sasha. I was looking for like a.
I thought it was going to be one of those lopsided ones like the other
Yeah,
ones.
me too.
No, it's not hugely different. All right, and the last one: credentials or username.
Credentials.
I'm going to say credentials. I'm going to go credentials.
All right, and 4 for 4 for both of you. I don't think that's ever happened, by the way, on this show. That is impressive. I'm impressed with both of you. You both did a 4 for 4. Excellent. All right. Well, that will play into our next game, which we will. Who the hell searches danger? Said Russ. I'll tell you who searches danger. Someone who's a fan of Lost in Space. Danger Will Robinson. That's why they would search danger. All right. Let's jump into the rest of our questions here that we have. Okay. Okay. This is Stephanie Cass has a question that's totally on exactly, I think, what you want to talk about, Derek, here. And she asks, can you discuss more in detail security control validation and attack path management approaches, similarities, differences, and uses? Derek, can you take this?
Totally. So I've spent a lot of time over the last couple of years with this concept of attack paths, and I'm going to throw in credentials as we go through. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to describe in my own kind of vision how the attacker moves through the environment and what that is in an attack path. There's an entry point, right? We used to call it the end point, but it's no longer an end point because, they can, I think exchange is the number one entry point, right? So they enter and then they mine credentials off of those devices that they have gathered. So those are where identities start, right? Those are typically local, but they could be cached from the domain, right? This is where we're really talking about a tier structure, right? Sasha mentioned, the different structures and constructs that we can protect. Then they move laterally. They take those credentials and move to another device and mine more credentials, right? So they're mining credentials. Then the goal is to enumerate Active Directory, again, identities, and then they play match game. Hey, are any of the credentials that I've mined in AD with privileges? If so, I'm done. Actually, no attack occurred on Active Directory whatsoever because they use the identities and the ability to enumerate, and now they can virtually do whatever they want in the environment. This is where you get into backdoors and persistence. But that's a path, right? That's the path that they're taking. And so mapping out those paths of what they can do, right, the stepping stones, becomes essential across all of your enterprise.
All right. Very good. What would you add to that? Oh, and before I toss to you, Sasha, let me just mention, let's put our poll live on the what not to say to a Cybercrook. And again, these were some doozies. They were a really good one. And I definitely want everybody to vote on this. All right, Sasha, the attack paths, continuing your thoughts on this.
Yeah, I the only thing I would add to it is, over time, the frameworks we can use for this have also evolved. It used to be the case that we had to sort of invent our own way of analyzing this, and the more mature organizations could maybe do that. The ones that operate below what, is kind of often called the security poverty line, maybe didn't have the mechanisms to do that. So if I think back 10 plus years ago, I think the closest thing that we had to that was something like I think Lockheed Martin developed kind of cyber kill chain to say what in this chain went wrong and how can we think about in a framework way the kill chain and the steps that it took. I think today we're almost very lucky to have things like the MITRE ATT&CK framework and other things that help you map, in a mature manner, what are the TTPs that go into making this and where could we have severed this chain somewhere along the way to prevent it from happening in the future. So in some ways we're much better off today than we were a decade ago because we have some really good frameworks to think about this.
Very good point. Just remind everybody the poll is live. Please register for next week if you haven't. Let me go to the next question here from Val Dobrushkin, who goes back to a question I had asked at the beginning was, dealing with the false positives and stuff. But this is interesting, and I don't know if this is your strategy, and I'll start with you, Sasha. But this seems kind of a logical way of doing it, so as to not overwhelm yourself, but maybe it's not wise. I don't know, but Val says, so is your strategy to reduce flow to ensure only positives are coming in and then slowly expand with new feeds or expanded details until you filter out all the false positives for that particular feed before adding another one? So the idea is minimize like the false positives coming in because you wouldn't know where the problem is coming from. Because if you turn everything on, how the heck are you going to know like where the false positives coming from? Yes, no? Is this kind of a logical way of looking at it, as Val explains?
I think it's definitely a logical way of looking at it, but I can also think of several other logical ways of thinking about it. So here's why I demur a little bit on that question. So I think a lot of it depends on the company. So let's take another example. Static code analysis. That's another one where you could have a tremendous amount of signal noise problem where most of it is noise and very little signal, 99+% false positive rate. So what do? Do you drown developers in, 100 problems, one of which might be real? Or do you only tune, or do you only let out into your CI/CD pipelines and static code analysis pipelines? Do you only let the rules that you have very high confidence and fidelity in on for them to action? I think the answer is, again, it sort of depends on each company. What's the nature of the asset for which you're getting those insights? Is it something that's crown jewels? Is it something that's lower value? I could see a scenario. So I completely agree with what was said. I think that is, no one could argue with that being a good approach to take, certainly. But I could also see some scenarios where you may take a completely orthogonal approach and say, I think for this type of asset and for this space, I want to know everything. And that way I don't possibly let a needle in a haystack go. I mean, I think we had an example, right? Wasn't Target an example of where they were being told the whole time that there was a problem. There was just an overwhelming amount of information, but they just didn't know what to do about it. I think that could potentially happen. But I think there are scenarios where I'd rather have the information and be drowned than not have it at all. I don't disagree with the approach that is a rational way of starting a SOC or a static code analysis or any other venture like that.
My only concern with the Val's suggestion here, Derek, is it may take too long to get a full picture. Because if you do one at a time, it takes a while to refine each feed. So that's my only fear with that technique is it just would take too long to have something solid. Yes or no? What do you think?
Yeah. And the very first thought that came to my mind when you were reading through the suggestion was ebb and flow. There's going to be times when you increase and decrease. There's going to be times when you add additional correlation rules. You're going to add things to help remove those false positives. Sometimes you may constrict it too much, right? And so you need to open it up a little bit. But I'm going to go back to my point. If you can get quality information coming into the SOC, it makes a radical difference compared to trying to weed through what's good, what's bad. And I'm going to play on Sasha's idea, right? If you can get rid of some risk because you've solved it, well, guess what? You can get rid of some things coming into your SOC because you've solved it, or that it's quality information coming in. So I think there's a variety of things you can do.
Yeah, there's also, I think, a case to be made for if you see a lot of noise, that noise or overwhelm, that can help you make the case for more resources, more funding, that there is still a problem that needs to be worked on. If you tune 7 rules and those rules work great and it's very silent, that might not be sending the right message about the totality of the problem to the decision makers that need to authorize, more money, more funding, more people, whatever it might be.
But what about this? And I'm sure this comes up constantly of the what if we miss something thing. It's like, well, no, we got to look at everything. What if we miss like that? I'm sure this comes up all the time. How do you deal with that, Derek?
That's a good one. I mean, immediately,
like,
I
I'm
go
sure
back
it
to
always comes up like, oh,
it
if we
does.
refine it this much, we might miss this. Kind of like there's always that fear. I'm sure it always sits there.
There is. I mean, look, I think Sasha mentioned Target. Look at United Nations, right? United Nations, it came through the SOC. They missed it because of the volume. Voluminous. We have such voluminous information coming through. A human cannot deal with the amount of information. Also, what I say on, especially on the AD side, is SOC analysts aren't AD gurus. They don't know what an admin SD holder is. They don't know Kerberos delegation. What is that, right? So we need to refine the information. We need to make it more intelligent so that the whole process is better. And then if you're refining the process, volume is going to be smaller automatically, in my opinion.
All right. And how do you deal with the classic response of, well, we got to leave it on because what if this happens kind of such, which I'm sure you've heard plenty of times before.
Yeah, I absolutely. And I think that's justified, right? We're all worried that we're going to miss the big thing, the big event that might come in and compromise the environment. I think the way to deal with it is in a risk-based approach. Do we need to hear everything about a certain category of assets and probably respond every time and look at it every time? Probably. There's a category of assets for which we do need to do that. Then there's probably lower tier risk category of assets where we can probably let some things go and not pay as much attention, not because we don't want to, we just don't have the people, right? We don't have the people, the resources, time to go in and, make signal out of the noise.
All right. Let's jump into, this is a good time to jump into it. We're going to jump in a little bit earlier to our, what is this? Let me go back. I'm trying to find where my thing is. Where is my thing? There it is. Here we go. My apologies for my hesitation, but we're jumping into it now.
Oh no, that totally sucks.
All right, Sasha, Derek, since the two of you got 4 out of 4 right, each of you only need to pick 3 behind these 12 different numbers. Now, what this is, and this is how this game works. There are 11 bad things that happen behind these numbers. 11. There's one good one. 11 bad things, but they vary in degree of badness. Some are tepid bad, some are really bad. What's going to happen at the end of after each of you pick 3 of them, the audience is going to decide which of the two of you has chosen the worst environment of the collected items. Following me there? All right. Sasha, you're our guest here. I'll let you pick first. Pick a number 1 through 12, and let's see what you chose.
Okay. I'm going to go with 5.
Goes with 5, and 5 is? You've got an intruder that hasn't done anything yet. All right. You do have an intruder in your environment. And you are blue, by the way. You'll see that color blue. Derek, you're going to be red. Red, you pick another number that's available.
8.
We're going with 8. And 8 is? No one seems to know what the company crown jewels are. So I'm guessing Sasha right now is in a worse situation than you are, but we are going to also color you red so everyone knows which ones are yours and which ones are Sasha's. All right, Sasha, pick another number.
Is there a phone a friend, phone an audience? Maybe I want to see some comments. What number should I go with
yell
next?
out which number you think is the best.
Let's see. I'm going to go with 2.
2. We go with 2, and 2 is CISO goes on trial for not ethically disclosing a breach. Maybe this might have been pulled from the news. Who knows? Derek.
All right, I'm going to go 7. Someone said 7. Stephanie said 7. I'm going to go 7. Here we go.
All right, Stephanie has chosen your entire security staff is fired and replaced. Again, another one pulled from the news. or we think this is what happened over at Patreon. We're not exactly sure what happened. All right, last one for you, Sasha. Pick one last one.
12. Jacob and
12.
Peter's recommendations.
Whoops. Hold on. Here we go. Why is this not showing up? It did that to me again. Hold on. I have to pull this back up again. It does this to me every now and then. Now I have to remember what I chose for the two of you. What did we get?
I was
okay,
5
so
and
you
2.
picked 2 and 5, right?
5, 2, and 12.
5, 2, and 12. What's your third one? Attackers are exploiting the same vulnerabilities as last year. That's always great. And then you picked 7. What was your other one, Derek? You
8.
picked
8.
8. Okay, 7 and 8. There we go. All right, pick one more.
3.
3. All right. Your point solutions aren't talking to each other. That's never good. All right. So everything in red. We're putting up the poll right now. We're hiding the other polls here. So there should just be one poll for Sasha. Let's just hide the other polls and just put up Sasha and Derek. And we have to, come on, I'm seeing the what's worse poll. All right, hold on. We're doing, the idea is you have to determine who has a worse environment. Everything in blue is Sasha. Everything in red is Derek. Sasha, I'm thinking you have it way worse.
Yeah, I think I'm going to take this one.
I think you're going to please go ahead and vote. Don't type in the go ahead and vote. Sasha, you are currently you're running away with it right now with 100% of the vote. Yeah. Derek's one person did vote for you, Derek.
I mean,
but
it feels
like
feels like 2 out of 3 of Derek's are just like everyone's Tuesday.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, two out of the point solutions and the crown jewels.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to defend I'm going to defend here. Sasha's number 5. Everyone has one.
Yeah.
They're called employees.
And also, I wouldn't be surprised. Also, I wouldn't be surprised. Number the intruder. Yeah, they're called your employees. But also, I would say number 12. That a lot of you probably have vulnerabilities from last year. They're still sticking around as well.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. So they may
Last
have
year.
a 2 3. But
10
again,
years ago.
Sasha, you ran away with it 14-2 with our audience. Congratulations, or not, Sasha, for winning. That Totally Sucks. Again, it's called That Totally Sucks for a reason. All right, let's jump back into our questions here. What do we got from our audience here? That one we answered. We'll come back to that. I want to go to my questions that I have here. You at the very beginning, Derek, had mentioned something. Well, the attackers are doing the same thing. Can we use the same tools the attackers are using against us for our own benefit? And which tools are that, and what are we actually doing, Derek?
100%. And I think from my view, especially, and again, I always lean AD, but we're using those solutions, right? I constantly hear Bloodhound. I'm constantly hearing Ping Castle. I'm constantly hearing, we're using assessments and pin tests, and those are all great, right? Sasha mentioned PowerShell. Let's just go right for information, and because that's what these tools are built on, right? Not all of them, but the majority. The problem with that is I see organizations and admins saying this is enough. It's not enough. That's the problem. It's not enough. Quantum ransomware, I believe, holds the record. Initial to ransomware deployment, 33 minutes. Oh yeah, I'm running a scan once a month. Well, okay, you're way late. You need solutions that are more real time, analyze in real time for you. We can't rely on the human to do it. We need solutions that do it, and I think that's going to help us a lot.
Sasha, I want your thoughts on this, on using the same tools the attackers are using.
Yeah, I think it's not only can we, it's we must. We must.
You don't have a choice, like what Derek just said.
Yeah, and he mentioned some of the great tools, but there's an entire space emerging out of this, right? The breach and attack simulation space is specifically for this reason, is to say, let's find vulnerabilities and replay them constantly in your environment against you, similar in ways that attackers might. Now, some of that, I think anyone who's an experienced InfoSec person would probably say, yeah, that takes you so far. but you're still missing the really creative human element of the, new attack path that has not been yet converted into automation. Absolutely. But, back to my original point about lowering the denominator or taking risks off the table, take off the table the ones that can be. Yes. Is human, manual, creative testing still needed? For sure. Can you take a lot of risk off the table and just worry about a more finite set of problems by running those types of tools against yourself? Absolutely. And you should.
I like that. If you have solved a problem, you can take risk off the table, take it off the table. I like that because there are certain problems we can actually solve in cybersecurity. It's not, a completely Swiss cheese environment. Derek, what was it? Oh, I want to give you an opportunity to specifically speak to what Tenable is doing in this environment before we go to our next game, and that is, what are you doing, Tenable, specifically on dealing with this very targeted problem?
Well, I love the idea that the Sasha's throwing out with taking things off the table, and you can do that in one of two ways. One is you can say, is the risk high enough? Right? I mean, has anyone exploited this? Is there even an issue here? Yeah, it's a bug, but what can they do with it? Right? So you can, if the priority is not enough, take it off the table. Just put it out of your radar. But also, you need to be able to fix things, and you need to be able to take those off the table. And in my opinion, that's what Tenable does across the board. We prioritize, right? And soon, the whole landscape of enterprise exposure is going to be there, where all of the information is shuffled together. So you don't have 4 different views with 4 different priority lists. It's shuffled together to where you have the enterprise view as a priority list. So now, okay, I need to deal with this vulnerability. I need to deal with this AD thing, this OT thing, and they're all in one view. Mm-hmm. That's going to give the enterprise that additional layer of, oh my gosh, right? I didn't know that I needed to deal with these 3 things because this view says to deal with these 3 other things. That's really where things are moving. It's integrating everything together so that we see the risk to prioritize in one view instead of having to mentally or manually shuffle it together. And that's pretty exciting. And it's a brand new space. And we're hitting it pretty hard.
And let me just add to that. And I want to get to Dutch's question too. He's got a good question in the chat. I got to imagine just the issue that you bring up, Sasha, and that you double down on here, Derek, of, what can we take off the table? My guess is a lot of companies don't have a really, really hard time answering that. And I'm guessing over at Tenable, that is essentially kind of a core responsibility of figuring out what that is. Yes?
Totally. I mean, 100%. It is what we really do best, which is give an organization a list of priorities to address now with highlights of why. I mean, it's not just, hey, this is scary, whatever. It's the background. It's that context again, right? Mm-hmm. Allowing you to make those decisions. And every organization has to agree to a certain level of risk. But if you've agreed to it, take it off the radar, right? If you fixed it, take it off the radar. If you have a solution in place, now look at honeypots or look at things that maybe are tangential to it because you've taken that off the radar. And I think if you can start to take things away and focus on the priorities, you can actually make some progress in reducing the attack surface and the overall risk. I think you can. I really think you can.
All right. I was going to get to our next game, but I want to address Dutch's question here. And he asked, here, let me go up to this question. What tips do you have, and I'll start with you, Sasha, on this, for cross-training security architects and engineers who aren't SOC analysts or conducting incident response? Sasha, your take on this.
Sure, and I'm guessing it's to train them into being, SOC analysts and incident responders. I'm assuming that's the question. So, let's say take it to a slightly higher level. I'll answer that question as well. I think in general, in fact, we just had a discussion about this at the Black Hat CISO Summit as well, that, that tent, I don't think is big enough at the moment in InfoSec. I think we tend to think of security people only as, packet ninjas, and we disregard those who can be relatively easily trained because they're in a tangential or a complementary discipline into the things that we need. So, can you take auditors and turn them into privacy experts? Can you take controllers into people looking for anomalies? I mean, that's what controllers and auditors do. They look for anomalies. Can you take that base skill and turn it into something you can use in more proper cyber domains? Absolutely. So, one of the things we talked about there was treating InfoSec less as this unbelievably sophisticated, high-end, degreed kind of domain, which it is. I don't want anyone to misconstrue that that's not what I think it is. It is in some areas. If you're developing advanced cryptography, if you are in some of the research spaces, yes. Do you need to be degreed and have some advanced, formal education behind that? Probably. But if you are doing some of the other parts of InfoSec, to me, it's analogous to like a trade. Just like a fantastic electrician or a plumber would start by being an understudy of a journeyman, electrician or a master electrician or whatever they're called these days. I think there are many aspects of that InfoSec can adopt as well. I think SOC analysts and incident responders can train under other SOC analysts and incident responders and become very good at that over time. So that would be my first point. I'll defer to Derek now. I'm happy to comment more and talk about it afterwards.
Derek, your thoughts on this, and then we're going to get to our next game.
So let's take it back to one of the main topics of today, which is attack paths. Mm-hmm. And I want to also throw in my comment about research, right? I do not believe that they have to be experts in everything. Let's just take the top of the issues and teach at that level. It's actually not that complicated. It's just very well known. It's very, very well known. We've talked about MITRE, we've talked about NIST, we've talked about CIS, we've talked about all these different organizations that give us the path. We can start there. And now we're focusing on what the attackers are focusing on. And if we can teach the concept of attack paths in combination with risk, now they know what to look for. They know how to correlate things together because it's all the same. Lateral movement is lateral movement. I don't care if I'm moving laterally to a Windows box, a Mac, or a printer. It doesn't matter. It's the idea of these concepts, and the attackers certainly aren't thinking about the depth of security of every device. They're thinking about, how do I go from here to there? We can start there. We can actually teach at that level, I think.
Awesome. All right, we got a call. It just came in.
Hello. Welcome to the Department of Yes, where no request is ever rejected.
All right, this is the Department of Yes game. We got a lot of really bad ideas, or essentially what not to say to an attacker. Some pretty darn funny ones. We will be picking the best, the real winner next week. But I'm going to have the two of you, you have to explain why you actually want to say this to an attacker, for what bizarre, demented reason you would actually do this. And so I'll start with you, Derek, on this. John Cleary suggested this one. And this was the most voted up one of all of them. You call that a vulnerability. You should see what else we got. So you're going to say this to an attacker. Why do you want to do that?
Well, first of all, they're going to stop with the vulnerabilities, right? I mean, that's a great thing, right? You now, as Sasha said, take that off your list, because if there's something better than a vulnerability, there's no reason to look at vulnerabilities. They're going to be trying something else, right? Mm-hmm. Now, if I can go one step further, I'm going to actually give them a little bit of a dabble of what else to look at. And that's my honeypot, right? So this could be the perfect way to trap the attacker, because now you're guiding them to what you want them to look at.
I like that. The question is, are they going to fall for it? We don't. Yeah. Who knows?
I mean, why front door and the back door is wide open.
There you go. Good point. Sasha, why do you want to say this?
Remind me of the phrase. What are we saying?
The phrase is, You call that a vulnerability? You should see what else we got.
Yes. Yeah, this is a lot like the ones that were like, give out Amazon gift cards for ones. Yeah. I want to say this because it's going to lead to the discovery of a lot more vulnerabilities. I have no doubt.
So but the idea is you're probably going to show them off. But the hope is that they'll act as your pen tester for you,
Right.
and you'll
Right.
save money on pen testing.
Exactly. Yeah. It's
I'll go with that.
Yeah.
All right. The second one here. This comes from Brian Colt, who says, post an open invitation to pen test your environment on all the hacker forums and offer exposure as compensation. We will expose. Look at what a great job. So it's a similar pen testing thing here. I'll start with you, Sasha. Why do you want to do this?
Same answer as the previous one. I feel like I'm now going to have a tremendous amount of insights into all the weaknesses and vulnerabilities in my environment. And I can probably reduce the cost of my own pen test team by doing that.
But raise the cost of ransomware. There you go. Sir, yes, sir! Derek, why are you going to do this?
I'm going to catch them, right? I mean, it's like just putting the sweetest honey out there and saying, I challenge you to this, and I'm just going to be waiting there to cuff them and take them away, and it's a trap. It's an absolute trap. That's the reason. So I'm going to go with my first idea as well is bring them in and then lock them up.
Make the blue team better.
That too.
There you go. Very good. I like it.
Sir, yes, sir.
We did that.
Oh, yeah.
All right. Okay. So good job for both of you. Excellent on that. And we are 10% Better poll live is up, and we got a few more because I was giving you guys crap that, as always, you have way more bad ideas than you have good ideas. But that's the way we want it. All right. We have how much time? We got 13 minutes left in our show. So let me do this. My final reminder. Click the damn link at the bottom of the screen to register for next week's. If you register, you're automatically entered in a raffle to win one of our awesome CISO Series jackets, and you want to do that. That means if you register early, that by Tuesday, but why not just do it right now? Because you're going to forget over the weekend and before Tuesday anyways. But if you register after Tuesday, you still can come, just you're not entered into the raffle, and that stinks, right? So register by Tuesday. All right, let's get to another one of my questions. I want to go back to the MITRE ATT&CK framework here, and I'm going to actually start with you, Sasha, on this. How useful is it? In what way is it useful? And what way does following the attack path here help you spot your own vulnerabilities and essentially remediate? It's a big question, I know.
Yeah, no, I think it's valuable in a lot of cyber and technical ways that I'll get to, but I'll point one out that I think is maybe not as talked about as it should be, which is it helps me talk to vendors. I go to vendors with the MITRE ATT&CK or even Defend framework, and I say, where do you play? Where do you add value? And which one of these columns or rows do you do something? And it's, whether you're a DLP solution or whatever it might be, I want to know which of these areas do you feel like you help me burn down risk in. So one value or how I use it is in talking to vendors and considering solutions. The other way is, like I mentioned earlier, it gives me a almost like a CBK, right? It gives me an industry standard way of talking about risk and attack patterns and defense that I can also use in info sharing bodies, right? If I talk to people within our industry or in various consortiums, it can be used in that manner to say, hey, what are you guys doing for, TTP, whatever. And so I think it's useful in conversations in industry. And of course, lastly, it's unbelievably useful in just defending your own environment in over time, growing maturity in each area, knowing, can you detect, can you respond, can you automate, can you replay? It gives you a frameworked way to approach this problem. That's what I like the most about it, is I think gives us a common frameworked way to approach the problem.
Yeah, I kind of like that. And the other reason why we always recommend the CIS controls, like where the heck do we start? Well, start looking there. It's kind of the same thing with MITRE. Yes, Derek?
Totally. And I'm going to come from the other side of Sasha. It's a great way to interface with prospects. I mean, it's a great way. It is that common language that is spelled out easily goes over everything in detail. And as I said earlier, it's the documentation of what attackers do. And so, to Sasha's point, right, the customer is saying, all right, where do you fit? What do you fill? Which checks do you solve here? And because we line up, right, Tenable lines up across the board with MITRE ATT&CK framework, we're able to have those conversations, and we're able to say, okay, we fill this, we fill this, we fill this, we help with this, we help with this. And it is an easy way to have a conversation versus if someone has a different term or someone has a different view on something, this gets us all in the same conversation to have bits and pieces of conversation across MITRE.
All right. I want to mention one of the good tips, and honestly, I would love to hear your responses because it doubles as a bad idea and a good idea here. From Phil Wolf, Sasha, he says, expose board members to an attack, help them recover, that is key, and watch your security budget double. So it kind of, you wouldn't do it, but man, it kind of sounds like something you'd like to do. Wouldn't it be, Sasha?
Probably shouldn't comment on that. No, I definitely wouldn't. But let me give you an interesting kind of comment on that. If you look at the stock price of companies that have been breached and who have come out and said, yep, we had this, right? You have this kind of very, very momentary dip, but then you have a hockey stick effect where the stock goes to new heights it's never been before and very fast. I spent time years ago talking to Daniel Miessler and some other, thought leaders in the InfoSec space about this. Can we envision a time when companies will manufacture their own cyber events for the benefit of bumping up the stock price? Because so far, if you look at every single breach that has happened, the stock price within 3 months of a breach ends up being, far higher than before it. So I think we have kind of a culture of redemption here, especially in the Western world. We like a redemption story. We like someone to come out, fall on the sword the proper way, promise to do better. And it's like we flock to them to invest. So there's been that, if you look back, that has been a consistent trend across every company that has been breached.
Sherman actually had given me a heads up, and I didn't even realize it because it just came out, I think, last month, that Adam Newman, who was the founder of WeWork, and I just listened to the audiobook, which I highly recommend, The Cult of We, just got a $350 million investment from Andreessen Horowitz. This guy lost billions of dollars from other people, and yet he got money back. As you said, people love that story. All right, everyone hold tight for just a second. I'm going to just do a couple of wrap-up things, and then we're going to get closing thoughts from everybody here, and then we're going to go to our meetup. If you have not clicked the link at the bottom of the screen, please do that right now. Remember, this is our show next week, Hacking, Phishing, an hour of critical thinking about how malicious attackers weaken trusted forms of communications. And you want to do that early because you're entered raffle to win a CISO Series jacket. Congrats again, Bradley, for this week. All right. Huge thanks to your company, Derek, Tenable. By the way, make sure you have the answer to this question, how people can reach out to you, connect with you, and B, are you hiring at Tenable? My guess is the answer is yes to that. All right. Starting in really about 97 minutes from now, our cybersecurity headlines week in review. We've got Quincy Castro, the CISO of Redis, who's going to be there. Just a summary of the cybersecurity news of the week. We are on YouTube now. We have moved over to YouTube. So go over to, I think it's just CISO, youtube.com/CISO series. You can find us if you're not already there, but if you type in CISO series YouTube, or you go to CISOseries.com, click the YouTube button at the top, you'll find it there as well. Also, we have an events page. You'll find it there. Lots of ways to find it. All right, go ahead. Aaron, change the link at the bottom of the screen. Change it. That is going to turn into our meetup that we are going to do immediately following this. And also, there it is. It's right there. So you can click on it now, everybody. Go ahead, enter in early. Tell your friends to join us. We do this pretty much every Friday at 1 p.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific. And if you're interested in sponsoring a Super Cyber Friday, we have exactly 5 left in 2022. So contact me, and we will get you all set up on doing a Super Cyber Friday. Okay, we have 5 minutes left. I'll let you go first here, Derek. Answer my questions. How can people contact you? And also, are you hiring at Tenable?
dmelber@tenable.com, or just search on Derek Melber and I can't hide anymore. It's impossible. And
he spells his first name D-E-R-E-K, not the
that is absolutely
D-E-R-R-I-C-K or I-K,
Yes.
whatever. D-E-R-E-K. Go ahead, Derek.
Thank you for clarifying that. I appreciate it. And, of course, we're hiring, developers, awesome SEs. We have some amazing SEs, amazing sales, and we need the best of the best. Like I said, we have some really cool stuff coming out. Keep your eyes open for that. And if you want to join that, go to our website, and right there you can look at the jobs that are available. Or if you just want to email me, hey, dmelber@tenable.com, and I'd be more than happy to send you directly into HR.
All right. Mention you saw him on the show too. All right, Sasha, any last thoughts? And I'm going to take a wild stab. Is Salesforce hiring?
Salesforce is hiring. The security organization at Salesforce is right around 2,000 people.
Holy moly, really? Wow.
Yep. And we are hiring. It's the world's largest enterprise software company, and the portfolio is unbelievable now with Slack, with Tableau, with MuleSoft, with Heroku. It's not just CRM anymore. So it's a very exciting space, unbelievable set of technologies. And yes, we are hiring.
Does anyone at the company actually know all the companies that you've acquired? Or do you have a clue?
I think maybe the folks that do are like myself and others in security, whose job is to very quickly secure all of those organizations, but probably not outside of security very much. Maybe in the C-suite they do.
Possibly in the C-suite as well. All right. We actually get a time to answer maybe one or two more questions. So I want to get to actually, I think Dutch, you might have typed this part of this incorrect, but I'm going to read this. It comes from Dutch. I'd like to take this up a level. When talking risk with the board or risk subcommittee, we don't matrix them to death, or I don't exactly understand what that means. But essentially his question is tips on how to abstract key concerns and learnings in business language, not text speak. I'll start with you, Sasha, on this. What are, if we are talking about attack paths, or how much do they need to understand and know about this at the board or the C-suite, and how would you communicate it to them?
Yeah, no, as I put in the comments in the chat, I think the time for frameworks, whatever, MITRE, ITIL, others, whether it's IT or security, there is a time and place for that, but it's not at the board. At least my opinion is it's not at the board. You come to the board and the C-suite to talk like any other function would, like accounting would, like engineering would, like audit would, or any other function, which probably means you have to speak the same language. So, part of this is, I think David and you and I were talking about doing another, podcast or event talking about how you manufacture kind of a CISO from within and to have business context. But to me, a CISO needs to be someone that is just as senior and just as versed in the business that they're protecting as a senior executive as any other. That means going to the board and speaking to them in the C-suite in terms that they understand, which is probably not highly specialized security frameworks.
Mm-hmm. So they don't need to know about that. Derek, what's your advice on how much they need to understand and know in terms of connecting it to their levels of risk concern? Derek, are you there? I think you're frozen. Are you there, Derek? Did we lose you?
I think we might have,
I think we may have lost. Well, of all the times to lose Derek, it's literally the last minute of the show. Unfortunately, we have lost Derek. Okay. Well, we have exactly 1 minute left in the show, so I'm going to just wrap it all up. Hopefully, Derek's going to join us in the over at Toucan. Everybody, do me a favor. Click the darn link at the bottom of the screen. And Derek, thank you so much for coming. If you can hear me somehow, hopefully you'll be over at Toucan. You'll be able to do that. And Sasha, thanks a bunch. I met Sasha over at Black Hat. We've also had him on the show. He's been awesome. And Sasha, people can get in contact with you also about positions, yes?
Yes, absolutely. I left my contact information in the chat. My last name is such where I think spelling it out here for you guys won't be of much value, but I put my...
pronouncing it, as you know, took me a while to do as well. All right. Thank you very much, Sasha. Derek, who's trying to reconnect. I don't know what the heck happened there, but something happened. Anyways, everybody, click on the button. Thank you to our producers, Aaron and Andrew. Aaron, take us out.